Welcome, everybody, to the R.O.A.R podcast show. John Smith here with John Rutan. Today we have Corey Kennedy. Corey Kennedy is a trustee over in Leoni Township. Now, I know Leoni Township's in Jackson County, but it was just pretty. The story that I heard over there is pretty profound, and I want to introduce Corey here. Corey, go ahead and say hi to our listeners.
Hi, thanks for having me. I appreciate being here. Appreciate everyone following what's been going on. There's been people from multiple counties that have reached out and are interested in what's going on in Leoni Township.
Well, Corey, we got Michigan's going through a very dynamic situation with the medical marijuana situation.
Not only that, just even the in November on the ballot, there's going to be a
it's recreational marijuana. Yeah. So
for the vote too.
I mean, hell, with the population up to 50% of the population smoking marijuana, or at least has smoked marijuana, obviously it's something that's pretty easy, accessible to get to. A lot of people are involved in funding their own grow operations. But what you got going on in your community, Corey, is that you guys, as a board, have approved to have essentially corporate farming for medical marijuana. Is that correct?
We approved an ordinance that allowed all 4 types of licenses under the Medical Marijuana Act in Michigan.
Why don't you tell us what those licenses are?
Well, there's 4 different types. There's the grow, there's the distribution, which is the logistics end of it.
Like the transportation part of it?
That's correct. There's manufacturing, which are basically the facility that turns them into oils and edibles and things of that nature. And then, of course, the one that everybody always pays attention to is the dispensaries themselves that sell it at the retail level.
Okay.
And that was capped in Leoni Township. Initially at 6, our treasurer made a pretty horrendous mistake on the initial application time and time stamped some applicants prior to the date, which opened us up to civil litigation. So as a board, we then had to increase the cap of dispensaries to
Now, can I ask a question? Is the cap based on population like liquor licenses, or is it just completely arbitrary up to a board?
It's arbitrary, John. Come on.
Well, you're absolutely correct.
This is so loose that we don't know where this is all going.
Right, but I know there's a lot of other people out there that are thinking, okay, is it done like a liquor license?
No. So the only thing similar to a liquor license is R.O.A.R is involved. But R.O.A.R is they don't have their grips around it like they do liquor
and
tobacco at all. So as you said, it's fairly loose. It's really up to the local municipality to say this is how many you can have and this is how many you can't. Now the state does have the final say in saying, so for instance, you can get township approval and get denied by the state.
Oh, okay.
And you cannot.
Well, see, you had me at local government. I'm a big constitutionalist. You had me at local government. That's where everything should be.
It was funny. Yeah, I was kind of guiding with that too. Hey, before we jump into the medical marijuana, Corey, why don't you give us a little background on who you are and why you got into local politics?
Sure. I grew up in Jackson, Michigan. I attended several schools in Jackson growing up with my parents.
What side? The Polish side?
I'm Irish, actually. Last name's Kennedy, So, but anyways, went to Western schools, went to Jackson Public Schools. My stepfather actually got a principal's job down here in Hillsdale County at North Adams Jerome when I was in 10th grade. And I finished up my high school down here. After that, I went off to Olivet College, played football there, and then I transferred after my sophomore season to the Western Michigan University, graduated with a BBA, and moved home. Actually, it was just little things in Leoni Township that were bugging me.
Well, what is Leoni Township, though?
Leoni Township is the farthest eastern part of Jackson.
That's like Michigan Center?
So it's Michigan Center. People say East Jackson. There isn't an East Jackson per se. It's East Jackson School District.
Don't tell the East Jackson gang that.
Well, that's where I live. And then a very small portion of Grass Lake makes up Leoni Township.
Okay.
So you spent all your life pretty much in Jackson.
Yes, I did.
And what got you into the small town politics, though?
So it was really just little petty stuff. My water pressure when I bought my house didn't work properly. I called the township hall, got the old bebop around, call this person, call that person. DPW came out, said, well, it's nothing on our end. You need to call a plumber. Call a plumber. Spend all this money on a plumber to tell me, well, your pipes are all fine, Mr. Kennedy.
What ended up being the problem?
It was township issue, pipeline.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So
Supply line.
Yep. Just things of that nature, and a lot of other small things that you notice, And as you get educated as a person, you start thinking, well, all these potholes in my neighborhood. Well, you learn that's not really a township issue; that's a county issue.
Yeah.
But,
We learn as we go too.
Yeah.
We're all learning together.
So, but all those things started bringing me to meetings, and then I started going to meetings, and you start listening to the individuals in charge of your government. And you're like, wow, how is this person qualified?
Yeah, you went down the rabbit hole. Huh?
Yeah, how is this person qualified? I love that.
Yes. So, a couple people in the Republican Party approached me and said, hey, you'd be a good candidate. Have you ever considered it? And at first I was like, no way.
It takes a lot of courage.
Well, and not to mention when you have a career and you don't need government, that's the exact opposite thing you want to do.
But that is part of what has brought us from 1776 to here, is because the thing with a Republican style government or with a republic is it's a participation government. It's not a spectator.
What's the famous quote? When good men do nothing.
Yeah, that's right. All it takes for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing.
And that's really how we view it too. I mean,
so it's tough, and I understand that. And I get a lot of people that say the same thing. But you know what? These same people can be at baseball games, football games, all these other things all week long, and then they can't go 1 hour, 2 hours once a month to their township hall and actually pay attention to what their government is doing.
And what I've found, in my personal opinion, at least in local government, and honestly I'd like to see it spread to larger level government, is you want people that don't want to make a career out of politics.
Absolutely.
You want people that are just going to doing it as a public service, going to do their time, and they're going to recruit somebody else with a similar mind. Because the problem is, once people start getting 2, 3, 4 terms in office, and they got pensions, and they got
12, 14, 16 years in, they're a lifelong politician at that point.
Exactly. And
even on a local level.
That's why I think one of the best speeches that was ever written was written by Benjamin Franklin, and he wrote it. It was actually an argument against Hamilton and salaries for the executive branch, and it was his speech of June 2nd of 1787, and he talks about these things, that if you make positions that are both positions of profit and preeminence. He said there's only 2 things that rule the hearts of man: avarice and ambition. The love of money and the love of power. He said if you create these positions that are both positions of power and profit, he said it won't be the peaceful men of this nation that will vie for those positions. And this is part of the problem.
It's absolutely correct, and you are seeing that
on a local level. We see it in almost every township at this point.
But the thing is, the local actually can control the national, and most people don't understand that because this is a republic.
Yes, absolutely. Constitutional republic. That's what we were founded on.
Or compound, right? Compound.
Yeah, compound.
So when did you get elected?
I was elected in November of 2016.
Okay, so it's been a couple years now.
Yep.
And how has the relationship between you and the rest of the board members up to this point? Well,
first off, what's the makeup of the board?
The makeup of the board.
It's 7 members, right?
It's a 7-member board with 4 trustees, a supervisor, and a clerk and a treasurer.
And what's the flavor of the board?
The flavor of the board is it's certainly
red Indian ice cream.
Stop it, you.
Well, it would depend on whether you went by what party the individuals ran on and what principles they actually go by. But
that's the hard part.
That's the MO, right?
Well, we see that here in Hillsdale, which is predominantly a Republican controlled area.
Yeah,
but you got a whole bunch. Yeah, I did air quotations because there's a whole bunch of people that they wouldn't have the first clue what conservatism was all about.
Yeah, and Leoni is a unique pocket of Jackson County. It was largely in the past home to union households, shop workers, which traditionally voted Democrat.
Right.
So for the most part, Leoni's always had Democrat elected officials. The Trump wave changed that this election. The clerk and the treasurer are registered Democrats. That's what they ran on the ticket. The supervisor ran as a Republican, even though most people that you talk to, and if you go by his voting history, he's a liberal.
Okay.
Is it just social liberal, or is he just?
He's a fiscal liberal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's scary.
Yeah, he's a spender, and really most of the board is, with the exception of Mr. Cole and myself. We are true fiscal conservatives. We want to see the budget. We want to see what we're voted on. We want to have a 3-bid process on everything. The other 2 trustees, it's not really clear whether they're liberal or conservative in some regards.
Could just be a toss-up.
I would say in some cases on their voting, they just didn't do their homework. They just didn't know exactly what they were voting for, and they went that route.
Is this their first time in government?
It is.
Okay, so I see this a lot sometimes. People's first times in government, they're really unsure of what they're supposed to.
They don't.
Yeah, because we've got a little group called Hillsdale Justice Project, and one of the things we do is we run meetings because it is just. It's unbelievable how many young adults in America through our public school system could not run a meeting by Robert's Rules of Order at all. And that's something that should be taught in school.
I see government employees all the time are insecure, just in general, whether it be liability lawsuits, whether it be insecure with what their title is and how far their power goes. They get a lot of the sovereign citizens talking to them. They get people like us talking to them. They get
then you get some people that believe that they don't want to make any waves. They ran for the position, they got a position, but they're going to vote for whatever the supervisor wants them to do.
Well, so it's similar to what went on in Leoni, with the exception that the 2 entreated elected officials are the clerk and the treasurer, okay?
Okay.
The supervisor came in, and I've already told you about his political leanings, but very green to the whole process.
Okay.
Robert's Rule of everything like that. The trustees as well, including myself, including Mr. Cole. We had never held elected office, but we were willing to speak up and challenge certain things,
right?
And say, hey, if we're wrong, explain to us why we're wrong.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Don't just tell us to be quiet.
Have you guys ever considered bringing on a constitutional scholar just to kind of maybe help out?
I would love to see that happen. I doubt
for free. I mean, they would do it for free.
But here's one thing that really needs to happen on the local level. If you look at Congress, even Congress has what's called a parliamentarian.
Yeah.
That parliamentarian sits there, and what their job is to make sure that if anybody has any questions, that they can ask them, so that they make sure that the meeting goes proper by Robert's Rules of Order or whatever parliamentary procedure they have.
As I've gotten more involved in politics, I started attending county commissioner meetings.
Yeah.
And I started attending Jackson City Council, and they do have that.
Yeah.
The townships, we're not quite as formal, to be quite honest.
And it's not always necessary to be that formal in the township.
Yeah, a lot of times.
We have an attorney that's present there at our supervisor's request.
There's your parliamentary.
Yes, he is.
Supposed to be.
He and I and Mr. Cole, Mr. Cole and I don't really see eye to eye with the attorney. We're going to talk about in a little bit some of the issues that I had with the attorney.
Well, Corey, because for the formal introduction here, let's just jump into it.
Yeah, I think we got all the niceties done.
Let's jump into what I want. Start with what we're talking about before we start the show. Start with in the beginning here.
Sure.
Break it down so our audience understands, and if they choose to investigate or do any more research themselves, they can go off of these dates.
That's correct, and I have documents to show it. To begin with, we were approached by the medical marijuana industry probably the summer of last year, somewhere in there.
Summer 17.
Yes. I don't have the exact date on that. Several meetings went by, discussions, an ordinance started getting drafted. It was honestly all 7 board members, I think, were operating with good intentions. We thought it would bring revenue to Leoni Township. Leoni Township is not considered the wealthy area of Jackson County.
Do you see right there from the rip, now that you've gone down the rabbit hole as far as you've gone, even that statement, the idea of government making money
The road to hell is paved with good intentions. So let's go from there.
You guys both make valid points, and looking back on it and seeing how the attorney and the elected officials steered the boat.
Yeah.
I have.
It just already sounded bad right when you said it.
Yeah. But there still are good things that can happen.
Sure, absolutely.
Sure, there still are. Yeah. I mean, just so you guys know,
where there's a will, there's a way.
When we got this $5,000 fee payout stopped to the elected officials, we froze it and started putting it in an account. That account's over $300,000 now. Okay, so that's a lot of money that could go to law enforcement.
Yeah.
In addition to that,
if you wanted law enforcement,
which is. Well,
okay,
yeah.
But go ahead. Let's start from the beginning, Corey.
Okay, so the ordinance passes. Then you have to come up with a allocation fee breakdown of this is only for the $5,000 application fee charge for each license.
So there's 4 licenses, and you charge $5,000 for each license.
Each type of license is the same.
Wow, I didn't even think about that. So if you did 3 out of the 4, you're paying $15,000.
It's more even complex than that. So for the growers. A lot of these guys, since our township ordinance didn't say you couldn't stack licenses, a Class C license allows you to grow, I believe, 1,600 plants, okay?
Wow. Dude.
So a big-time guy.
That's over 1,600 pounds.
Yeah. This guy's going to come in, and he's going to want some. And in the last case, the biggest one, is he stacked 10 licenses at one location. 10 Class C licenses. So for each.
What?
Yes.
Shut the door.
No.
$50,000.
Exactly. So that's just the beginning, and they owe a lot more fees to the state of Michigan.
Oh my gosh!
And then, but from a revenue standpoint for the townships, why townships are considering this is that's just a drop in the bucket, the $5,000 fee. Okay, the big thing is they're building multi-million-dollar facilities. Some of them, obviously, this guy with that big, you can imagine how big the facility has to be.
Oh, absolutely.
You're looking at $3.5 million just with that 1,600 plants. Street value.
And street value. Well,
that's legit. Now, that's $2,200 a pound.
Has this ever come up? Maybe what we could do is start smuggling it across the border to Mexico.
I don't think they'd pay.
So they don't have to pay it; just destroy them for breaking it across.
Okay, so you got all these fees attached to all these licenses.
Yes, but in addition, and I'm talking about in the beginning why we truly thought it was a good thing is the property taxes. You're talking about properties that were assessed at maybe 20, 30,000, and now they've got $1 million buildings on them. So the property taxes go up, and then in addition, hopefully you guys have done your research on the 3% excise tax from the state of Michigan that they share with the townships. Now there's a whole breakdown to that. Not all 3% goes to the township. Some of it goes to the county. Some of it goes to law enforcement. But it's a significant amount of money that a township would see, specifically a township that has a high percentage of these.
Now, I want to make a mental note to come back to his statement about the property tax, okay?
Yeah.
Make a mental note. Let's go.
That and the 3%, because the sheriff from Hillsdale County spoke against that at Somerset. His whole thing was, if you break it down, the 3% is really nothing to them. But go ahead.
And there's back and forth. And to be honest with you, till we see the money.
That's true.
Show me the money, right?
Show me the money.
Show me the money. And here's the other thing, with recreational going on the ballot, this could all be a moot point.
Yeah.
And there's 1 year of distribution, and then it doesn't
exist
really,
anymore.
Right.
So. Okay, so now let's go down the list.
Okay, so we talked about the ordinance passing, and then we had to come up with the $5,000 medical marijuana application fee distribution plan. On 11/27/17, the clerk, Michelle Mankey, drafted the medical marijuana distribution chart for application fees.
Was this done in a council, or did she do this by herself?
She did that by herself.
Okay.
So she drafts it, and she actually drafted it before that, and she brought it, and we had some objections to it.
Okay. Was this before the approval of the medical?
This was after the approval of the medical marijuana ordinance. They're two separate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
the one created the other.
Yeah.
When we initially looked at it, we said, hey, why are our names on this? Are we getting payouts for this? And we were told, no, you don't know what you're talking about. That's not how it goes. It goes
who said who was concerned about the payouts?
I was.
Were you the only one?
No. Trustee Cole and Trustee Villarreal both actually spoke up and said we don't want that.
So almost half of your board.
Yes. We were told flat out that no, there would not be payouts.
Right.
Okay. The conversation goes on. I don't know if it was myself or Mr. Cole. You'd have to check the voting record. But one of us made the motion to place it on the table. We had a lot more to discuss. We weren't comfortable voting on it. You know, it gets tabled. A month later goes by, and 11/27 comes around. That's the date on the chart itself. On November 30th, the township attorney, Eric White, dates a bill for $19,800 for a review of all the medical marijuana applications. That was for 18 applications, getting his cut of $1,100 per application.
Wow.
The bill is time-stamped by our township on November 4th, 2007. He bills us on the 30th.
Okay.
It's time-stamped as received by the township on December 4th.
Oh, December 4th.
December,
okay.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
We were thinking 11/4.
Yep. So, yep. Then December 5th, the township attorney, Mr. White, writes a letter to the township clerk, Michelle Mankey. And remember, she drafted the payout plan. And the letter gives his opinion that the method and percentages are a very good account for the application fees and allocates the funds appropriately. This is a plan that gave him $1,100 per application.
Right.
The clerk $500, the supervisors $350, the treasurer $250, and then there were other payouts also to appointed officials.
Like yourself.
Well,
Yes,
So
yes.
ethically, the lawyer's opinion has been tainted right from the get-go.
Well, yes, because here's the kicker. It's not presented to the public or in a board meeting until December 12th. And then the vote takes place, okay? And Mr.
Everybody's getting money before the vote takes place.
Well, now I want to be clear on that.
They're not cashing checks.
Yeah, but the billing occurred.
Yeah,
He obviously
yeah.
knew how much the amounts were.
Show me the money.
Yes, so December 12th comes around. At this point, we're still not clear, Mr. Cole and I, as whether we're getting payouts. Because remember, we've been told.
Yeah, you're in the dark.
We've been told no. So we go to the study session. We ask again. We're again told no. We don't know what we're talking about.
Who's telling you no?
Primarily Treasurer Stack.
Really? That's
Yeah.
the woman I spoke to the most, wasn't it?
I'm not
I
sure.
think you weren't there, but
She's the one that deleted her comments off of
Facebook.
She has a tendency to do that when she's confronted with facts. Anyways, that plan passes on a 4-2 vote. So Mr. Villarreal wasn't at that meeting, and we find out later he was advised not to attend. He's a police officer on Blackman Leoni public safety.
Yeah, that's more dynamic too.
So
Yeah.
come to find out later, his wife reveals on a Facebook page that he was told by members of the board. She didn't specifically say who. But I think we know who told him, well, if you don't come to the meetings, you won't get a payout, because the way they redrafted the plan that I'll show you was trustees would get $200 per special meeting we attended. So she drafted it a little differently for the trustees than the other elected officials who got paid per application.
Yeah, the executive.
So
people.
Mr. Villarreal initially just didn't come to any of the special medical marijuana meetings for approval, and we were wondering, where is he? What's going on here?
So he was doing it to keep from being in a position where he would receive payment.
Exactly.
Okay.
That occurs. Then on January 9th, the budget amendments are presented to the board. And budget amendments change the amounts that goes into accounts.
Line items.
Yes, and it doesn't essentially authorize the payments of said funds, but it's the first step to it of placing it. Okay, so budget amendments are presented to the board to distribute $48,000 in additional salaries, okay, to elected officials and appointed officials and township employees, strictly for the medical marijuana applications.
48,000 that had been collected up to that point.
Much more than 48,000 was collected.
Just 48,000 of it.
Their cut.
Okay.
$3,800 in FICA, $7,500 in pension payments into pensions, $30,000 to the attorney. The motion again passed. Mr. Villarreal was at that, since it wasn't technically a
Special meeting.
special
as a
meeting.
regular meeting.
He attended, and that passed on a 5-2 vote with Mr. Cole and myself again voting no. Again, we're still not 100% sure what's going on, but at that point in time, we're like, they're putting it in budget amendments. This money's getting distributed. We're voting no. So that occurs. then
That was an awful lot of money, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
You just said some extraordinary numbers.
Yeah.
I don't hear that in any other town. No township in Hillsdale has that kind of money. I don't think Somerset.
We've got some.
Has that.
Yeah, that's
I
way
don't
more.
know,
than-
dude.
so I'm going to keep going down here and tell you.
Yeah, go ahead.
tell you how we got it stopped. But to keep that in mind, had we not stopped it, had Mr. Cole and I not
Publicize this.
gave it to the public, and then luckily the newspaper and Channel 6 News showed up, and and members of the public were like, "This is wrong." It would have continued. Okay, we're over 70 applications now.
Yeah.
The clerk literally would have made almost as much as her entire year's salary in these payouts.
Oh, probably more at the end of the day.
She'd be over $35,000 at this point.
Yeah.
Which means the treasurer would be over $17,500.
Which we're going to talk about too, because I've never heard these kind of wages that in a local township.
It was mind blowing, and basically I sat at home and I was thinking, man, do I do this? Because if you do this, you're going to bring a negative light to your township to some extent, right? People are going to say, hey, you guys are crooks and all this and that. And I sat there and I said, you don't have a choice. You have to give this to the public.
Let me ask you this, Corey. Did you have a good feeling about this? I mean, there was no butterflies in the stomach when you come up with this decision to go against this. And the reason why I ask that is this. We've had other township supervisors when we tell them, look, the law's on your side. The only reason why you don't have a lot of authority is because you've given it up. You don't need a law to have the authority back. And a lot of them go, well, you don't understand. And I always tell them, look, it just takes courage. And anybody that's faced with that, it is a daunting thing when you're looking at it.
So it took a lot of courage. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, from their friends and family, a lot of negative things.
I was there at the last meeting, dude. You were taking a beating, man.
Yeah.
It was like they were taking the wiffle ball bat to your head.
Yeah, so they've started bringing some of their friends and family to meetings and social media these days and stuff like that.
That boardroom was 90% against you.
That was speaking. That was speaking.
Yeah, that went up and spoke.
Yeah.
Right.
But still, that's tough. And that's in here.
They weren't soft on
right.
them.
But the issue I'm making here is it does take a lot of courage to stand for the right thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people go, well, what if I'm arrested? Well, you know what? Our founding fathers were hunted like dogs as a lot
of times
for treason.
You get marginalized.
Yeah. So it takes a lot of courage.
Yeah. So I wasn't worried about anything from a legality standpoint. I felt the public had the right to know. I made a decision. My girlfriend wasn't thrilled because this isn't my career.
Can you imagine our wives, John?
and she knew what was going to come of it. It's going to be a heated.
Now, does she work in Jackson?
She doesn't. No.
Okay.
Thank God.
Thank God. Now, you work in Jackson, though, right?
I actually work in Chelsea, but
thank God.
Well, still, that's good. See, that's the thing.
Yeah.
If you worked in Jackson, she worked in Jackson. It's a completely different animal at that point.
Well,
in time.
the majority of Jackson is 100% behind me.
You had a big support outside of that boardroom.
Well,
and keep in mind that boardroom is not representative of Leoni Township. Okay, They went the group Reform Leoni started going around and getting signatures, and I'm telling you, it was an issue of just getting enough people to go out to the people. Almost everyone they approached, where do I sign? I mean, they got over 1,400 signatures.
Well, going on the Facebook pages and just looking at the way the comment structure was, I was actually surprised because I thought it was going to be a little bit less than what I saw. But you have a lot of support. I didn't realize you had such support, and I could see in talking with those other members, and they were very pleasant to me. I'm going to be straight up and honest.
Sure.
They were really nice to me, and they seemed to be very transparent with me, at least appear to be. But I could tell that they're insecure about their positions.
Yeah.
Well, and as they should be.
Yeah, I agree.
So to continue on, because I don't want to get out of the time.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
No, keep going.
So
January.
We get to January. January 31st is where I talked to you about
this year.
I talked to my girlfriend, and I prayed. I'm a Christian. I don't know if you guys are, but I am. Thought a lot about it and talked to some other people, and they're like, Corey, if you know this is wrong, you have a responsibility.
Your morals kick in, right?
Yeah. It kind of came down to your original quote tonight that a man that does nothing, he's pretty much
for evil to prevail, good men just do nothing. Yeah.
I decided to make copies of the plan itself, and just so it couldn't be said that there's no alternative, I drafted my own plan.
Very good.
with the
That's for all the trustees out there that are listening today.
Yes.
You know, like
Yes.
they all feel like they can't do anything.
Yeah, you do. You know what? And I can tell you, the attorney and some of the board members were telling Mr. Cole and I early on, because we were green. You know your role. You know, you're just the trustee. And let me tell you something: a trustee is still a governing body on that board.
Hell
Still
yeah.
elected.
Fist pumper.
Still
Hell yeah.
elected.
So you have a voice and you have a right to present it. So at that meeting, I drafted my plan, and I also had their plan, and I handed it out side by side. And the reason I did that was they were about to bang more applications through. So the 18 had already been paid out, and they were about to do more. Okay. So handed out to the crowd. I don't know if the newspaper was there at that one or not. I want to say they were, but I'm not positive. But the crowd at that point was very upset, as they should have been. So they don't end up putting any more money into the pot for the elected officials at that meeting. So then our next meeting is February 13th. Okay. So February 13th, Supervisor Linneberry attempts to create an ad hoc committee to distribute the funds. Okay. The audience again was there. Now this is the meeting after I handed out the plan. So they're
Side by
there.
side.
They're upset.
So this is in February.
This is February 13th.
Well, I bet you're heated from January to February already.
Yes, and it had hit the papers now.
Yeah.
So
It's in full motion now.
it is. So Kurt and I sit there and we're like, no, that's not what the public wants. No, we don't want an ad hoc committee. We want this plan dissolved. Dissolve the plan, Howard. And Howard's the supervisor. The meeting kind of goes a little haywire, but eventually that happens. Motions are made to put the medical marijuana application fee money in a frozen account for a period of 1 year, to where it would be distributed based off verifiable costs. Okay.
What was the vote on that motion?
7-0.
Oh, okay. So it's a unanimous vote.
Yeah, they better vote that.
Yeah. Yes. So then also the original distribution plan was dissolved. They were two separate motions. And I also, because when you do talk to the other ones, they're going to tell you they have all these documented hours of
Yeah, that's what they told me.
overtime.
Yeah, like
the
X amount of hours.
The problem with that is the vast majority.
I saw this through the comments, actually.
The vast majority occurred during regular township operating hours. Keep in mind, our township hall is only open Monday through Thursday. And that is considered full-time in our township, okay? Our employees work 34 to 35 hours a week, and that's considered full-time.
Yeah, that's full-time for most places.
If I can, I'm a business owner too, and one of the things, I do a lot of different jobs. So if we're doing one job or another job, it doesn't matter. If somebody's supposed to get paid X amount for 40 hours worth of work, whether they were pouring concrete, roofing, or putting on siding, they don't get paid any extra for anything different.
That's their
They
salary.
get paid for 40 hours.
Yes.
So if these people are still at their job during those times, then I don't see where they've incurred any extra cost. Now, I'm a big believer in fair pay for fair wages.
Agree.
Or for
did
fair
they,
work.
Corey, how did they calculate their hours?
They wrote them down on a piece of paper. It was the honor system.
Oh, well, that
Man.
works. Yeah. I would let my employees do
So in the same meeting, you'd act, if you had been at that meeting, you would think I was some evil dictator by proposing that a time clock be installed and that people punch time cards when they're working on the medical marijuana, not only to log the amount of hours they're doing, but also the day and time that they were doing
that. Verifies it.
So I was met with,
that's why they were
It's very
invented.
objective
Yeah.
rather than subjective.
Well, no, that's why they were invented. You know,
Yeah.
so
yeah.
Well, I did the same thing one time where I worked. I brought that up, and oh my gosh!
I mean, you could do
arrows and slings.
you could do it on a program on your phone nowadays.
Yeah.
So I was just met with tremendous resistance.
I wonder why.
We finally got the motion to pass. Okay, so keep this in mind, guys. This is another thing that I haven't even pressed on, but that motion's passed. There's supposed to be a time card in that office.
Still not there.
You can get one on Craigslist for like $50.
I got a free one.
We have one. We have one from the
Okay.
previous board. They just won't use it.
Okay.
And the other issue is, well, that's the main issue that excuse me. The other issue is by law, elected officials can't be forced to punch a time card.
Okay.
But what I was saying is, well, if you're an elected official with a salary and you're claiming that you're putting in extra time to justify this extra money, nothing says you can't punch a time card. Yeah, you're right. And this was the attorney saying it to him. And he actually agreed with me. I said, you're right. We can't force them, but there's nothing that says that they can't do it.
That's right. But the other thing is salary.
Yeah, that's what I'm
My
thinking.
wife
Salary.
my wife is on salary, and you know, some days she's off at 6, 7 o'clock. Some days she's working until
1 in the
midnight,
morning.
1 in the morning.
Yeah.
She doesn't get any extra.
Right, that's a salary
it-
employee.
Corey,
and it
John and
doesn't
I are
matter.
on salary right now. We're doing
Yeah.
my sister-in-law's bathroom. We've been there 2 months. I mean, it doesn't matter the hours.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it is
So-
what it is.
so how did they-
You just do your job?
This is strange, but okay.
So, you know, that's where we're at on that. You know, $9,000 for 18 applications. This is what happened. $9,000 went to the clerk, $4,500 to the treasurer, $6,300 to the supervisor. Okay, and that's for the work on 18 applications. Now,
How do I run for a position in Leoni?
Yeah.
well, remember that plan's done now.
Oh shoot! Okay.
You got benefits too. Ugh.
They got full benefits. They got full pensions.
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 That's better than my business.
And that's where we get into the next thing is
Wow, where's there's nothing conservative with any of this.
No. By creating this plan, they literally inflated their salaries on their pension amount, okay? And here's the key problem with that, okay? This industry, as we know now, with recreational right around the corner, at best it's going to be around 5-10 years. Yeah, I'm speculating. I don't know that for sure, but most realists are saying it's not going to be there forever. But what is forever? A pension payout.
Yeah.
So
Legacy cost.
legacy costs. So you are literally, because you chose to draft this plan and vote for it and take payouts and not return the payouts, you are actually making the citizens of Leoni Township incur a cost for your retirement.
And not just yours. No, wait a minute. And not just yours. See, this goes to the people in the future too. And that's
Yeah,
the problem
it's not-
with legacy costs.
Yep.
Is if I get paid 10,000, then the next person has to get paid
It's to the
10,000
seat.
as well.
It's to the seat.
right. Yeah. It's and this is the problem. Yeah.
I'm not following you on that. I don't know if that's necessarily the case in Leoni.
We're talking about the future. After you leave.
After someone else leaves
No,
and someone else comes in,
no.
they can say, "Look, we've got the same."
No. Well, here you go, guys. You're actually going to like this, okay? It took me a year to do it, but prior to all this, we got the pension plan
Nixed?
shut down.
Oh, good
for
job.
future,
Oh,
yeah.
high
Good
five.
job.
Yeah, give me some.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good job.
So that is done, and we transitioned to a much more responsible, defined contribution retirement plan for our employees.
See,
Okay.
then you just lost me.
Well, here's the thing.
For
Here's-
employees, I'm a big believer that elected positions
no.
should get nothing but a stipends.
and I agree with you. Okay, but in Leoni Township, they're tied together. Okay.
Yeah, that's part of the problem.
And also with the type of board I was dealing with,
What do you mean they're tied together?
it's in the same pension plan. The elected officials are with the office staff, hourly office staff.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
How bizarre is that?
Well,
I don't know if it's bizarre. I think that's actual
pretty
common in
common.
municipalities. Yeah.
but it's not right. But
Maybe
it's
for
pretty
bigger
common.
communities?
Yeah, well, Leoni's not that big.
You're double than what most of ours around here are triple.
Compared to Hillsdale County, we're large. But I
Yeah.
mean, you get over into Oakland County
Oh, yeah.
and those areas.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
And you guys are just tiny.
yeah. I mean, you can see all the robbing over there. So.
But you know, honestly, I know you guys aren't thrilled because there's still a retirement plan. But let me tell you, it's a significant savings
Decrease, yeah.
and it's not a legacy. Okay, you know what you're paying up front, and there's no more after that. Right.
Okay.
So it's a much more responsible plan. So any new elected official, and this kind of goes for the recall election that comes in, they're not eligible for a pension any longer. Okay.
Good.
So going forward, Leoni's on the right track. We've taken some steps.
Sounds like you got some new, like leadership on there, some charisma to step it up.
Yeah, well, you know, Kurt Cole and myself, we both are businessmen, okay, and fiscal conservatives, self-admitted. That does not necessarily make you popular in Leoni, as I said, from traditional. But I think when people look at the numbers, they're going to say, wow, and especially 20 years down the road, wow. Because if we would have just kept kicking the can and staying on this pension program, we were 35% unfunded.
Yeah.
So you guys are businessmen. That's what the BBA is.
Yes.
See, you have. I thought that was a blah blah blah. I wasn't sure what that was.
So we only got to February. What's going on since February?
Okay, so after February, we start looking into this. Okay, so obviously we talked about the conflict of interest of the attorney billing prior to the plan even passing, right?
Yeah.
And also writing a letter urging the board that this is a great plan. You should vote for it, right? So
yeah, he's making $1,100.
yeah, right. What attorney wouldn't think that's a great deal?
Did
right?
anybody look into the MRPC as what the attorney was doing? The Michigan rules for professional conduct.
No,
'cause I think that violates it. I'm not sure.
I'm almost positive. We had a lot of people look into it. I contacted state representatives, state senators. All of them said this is completely immoral and unethical. But and initially a couple of them were like, "Yeah, it's illegal. I'll get back to you." And then they were like, "Well, technically it's not illegal. Your board's the morons that voted for it."
Oh.
So, that's kind of how it went.
Okay.
But what I pointed out and what Mr. Cole pointed out on 313 is we FOIA. Well, we didn't FOIA.
So now this March, we're 2 months into where it's full out. Everybody knows cat's out of the bag.
Everybody knows.
Like you guys got. I bet those meetings are kind of awkward because when I looked at that board, there was 5 people to the left.
Yes,
and there was 2 people to the right.
Yes.
The armies are drawing battle lines.
Yeah, there was definitely a battle line.
They're entrenched with each other, and
in the comments that were made. Were just divide and conquer comments.
They were hostile, and part of the problem. I mean, I'm a tough guy. I could take it, but the supervisor has put rules in that there's no derogatory remarks. You'll address the board, and he tends to let comments that are negative towards us kind of just go. Mm-hmm. And if it's the other way around, then they're enforced.
So he's
So he's picking and choosing, you think?
Well, in that regard, I mean,
he's showing his flag.
I personally don't have a problem with it. When I came down to the township hall meeting
in Adams,
I was shocked at the back and forth. Mm-hmm. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing if you can keep order and control.
Yeah, it's all about keeping order.
Yeah, John and I have seen this throughout the townships, and the smaller townships tend to go back and forth, which can be that can be transparent at times.
But it can also be dangerous because
it's a double-edged sword for the politician.
Yeah, well, it's not just for the politician. It's a double-edged sword for the people of the community itself. Because if business doesn't get done because someone of special interest
has an agenda,
yeah. Such as we've seen at the we saw it at Adams Township, where one person came in and said, "Well, this is the duly elected board. This is representative government. You need to leave it alone." And then after the recall, they were like, "We want."
Yeah, but I've never seen them not get the meeting done because of these.
But it's about getting the business done and discussed properly.
The business is important. One of the rules our supervisor put in place when he took the board was we wouldn't debate and we wouldn't answer questions. I personally think, what are we there for? I mean, if people come to a meeting and they got questions, they deserve to be answered. And even if you don't have the answer, at least make arrangements to meet with them and get them.
And that's some of the back and forth that I think shows transparency.
Yeah.
Well, but there's still transparency that can be done. I understand some of these bigger things. Let's say you've got a meeting where 100 people show up. You could be there for the next 2 days, trying to get things done.
Yeah, you could do it afterwards.
So I do understand where that goes. In fact, Hillsdale City does the same thing, because what happens then, the other thing is, if I'm going to make, it's not fair to ask you a question on the board that you haven't had a chance to actually research and go, let me get you a proper answer on that.
Now, I agree with that. Now, it's the board members' decision whether they choose to answer it or
right.
not. I'm saying just don't shut it down completely.
No, and if it was me, my thing would be this. While during the public comment section, nobody from the board answer. However, after the meeting, we will have a
one-on-one or whatever.
a question.
Corey,
So
another
anybody
thing
that
is,
wants to hang around after
if
that,
you wanted
after
to,
business
say
is
you
done.
wanted to answer questions too, Corey, who's going to stop you?
And we have, to be honest with
You know
you.
what I mean?
A couple of times we have.
This actually came up
yeah.
with Adams just recently.
Yeah.
I was like, well, Mark should shut all that down. Well, I'm thinking, well, what if Michelle wants to take questions? What is he going to do?
Well, yeah, and she.
Right.
What can he do?
No, nothing.
Exactly.
No, right? I mean, I guess the supervisor has some control over the meeting.
Yeah, but he can't control the members of those board. They can.
because they're duly elected.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're duly elected.
Yeah.
So what I do want to continue, because
March.
this was very important. 313. I've already talked to you about the billings. Okay.
Right.
So I draft a letter requesting that the board, formally everybody agree to it, requesting that Mr. White bill us for the 18 medical marijuana applications that he billed prior to the plan passing, that he bill us at his standard hourly rate of $125 an hour. Remember how much money he was paying?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And how much do you think it takes for his time for those applications?
Well,
Maybe an hour?
It's going to vary on application, to
Okay.
be honest with you. Some of them are larger than others.
Okay.
But-
on average, an hour and a half, 2 hours per application. Is that fair to say?
Ballpark.
Ballpark.
I don't see how it could take more than 4 hours.
Okay.
How many hours would it take for him
That's
to make
$500. That's half the
$1,100?
money.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so it would have to be almost 10 hours
Yeah.
per application to make $1,100.
So the problem was the calculations I did and Kurt and I both did when we
Yeah, I
started.
knew you had to do the calculations, or
What-
you wouldn't be talking
Well,
about
when we started looking into it, he represents multiple townships in Jackson County. Okay. And he has a private law practice. okay?
Right.
So we start looking at his schedule.
Yeah, his workload.
It is not feasibly possible for the man to put that many hours in.
We see this across the board in
Yeah.
our communities, too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we see it going on here in Hillsdale.
So can I tell you for a fact how much he spent on each application? No, okay? But what I can tell you is the amount of money that he put out there for 18 applications in the time frame that it happened, highly unlikely, not even unlikely.
So he would have had to work the whole time without sleep.
But yeah,
Hey, hey, I bet he didn't have a time card.
definitely didn't have a time card. He's an attorney, right? A liberal attorney at that.
Oh, there you go.
Now, so that was voted down. Can you guys guess the vote? 5-2.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
right,
figured.
right.
Yeah,
Oh,
I do.
so at this point, so those other trustees are not on your side now,
No,
and going into March.
no.
So it's 5-2 at this point.
5-2.
So the law enforcement officer, even at this point in time, is
Villarreal.
yeah. He's although he's not coming for the special meetings to get paid. Sounds like he's right behind everybody else getting paid.
There's a multitude of things going on, and I don't really want to get into mudslinging.
Right.
No, I
But
just,
he has family members that are directly profiting from the sale of some of these properties.
Facilities.
Yeah.
Well, I also, as being an officer too, he directly, maybe, I don't know if he's a cop, if he's he arrests people with medical marijuana or
well,
this
to be fair, he voted no on not the distribution plan, but the ordinance
itself right from the get go.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
so he was against it.
Yes.
At the
Usually,
onset.
law enforcement is
Yes.
just in general, right?
In general,
Yes.
yeah.
So then when you go from that, you would think, well, this guy is going to be no on everything.
Yeah,
right?
right, exactly.
But it didn't go that way.
Yeah, it's sort of
So-
strange because I thought there was a conflict of interest from the RIP because people are profiting from this whole ordeal.
But wait a
Yeah.
minute. Let's not discount politics. Okay, one of the and you know as well as I do, there's always a skill set in chess of certain strategies that you do, and politicians are no different, especially those that study law enforcement or political science, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is part of law enforcement. I know I took a lot of poli-sci classes when I was doing law enforcement as well. So maybe if you know that something's going to pass and you vote no on it,
Symbolic.
You're
you
talking
know
like-
it's already.
John, this
so
ain't-
now
this
what
ain't
happens
Art of
is
War. Come on,
now
man.
what happens is yes, it is. Sun Tzu said so. So now what happens is he has the ability to walk around going, "I said no," even though now he can be behind the thing and have people profit.
Well, let's get him on the
his
show
side.
and we'll ask
yeah,
him.
I would like to ask.
And you should, because actually him and Mr. Cox, who's also close to law enforcement, he's not a cop, but he does ride-alongs with them.
The other trustee that I spoke to.
Yes.
Yeah, we'd like to have him here.
Yep, and you should. And the same thing, he voted no originally, but then going forward, he's actually different than Villarreal. Villarreal wasn't at the distribution plan. Mr. Cox voted yes for that. He actually, if he had not voted yes, it would have been 3-3, and the motion would have failed. Okay?
Oh, gotcha.
So, and then he and Mr. Villarreal have voted yes on every single license application
after that.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
what about April?
what about April?
Anything happen?
Well, we're not out of March.
Oh,
yeah.
Damn.
You keep holding him up.
So March 13th, in addition to the billings, right? I saw a clear problem with him writing a letter, presenting it to the board, and saying, "Hey, this is a good thing, right?" And you're making $1,100 for it. So, and a lot of people in the crowd are saying, you know, why is this guy our attorney?
Yeah, they're all catching it.
Yeah.
So
that's bad when the people, the citizens, are seeing it. Like
well,
that.
he's made a lot of money off Leoni Township. Anyways, we make the motion. I make the motion to dismiss him. Mr. Cole supports. Of course, it gets knocked down in another 2 to 5 vote. So that all happens, right? Now the citizens are further outraged, and the recall moves forward.
Is that when you started the recall? Was
The
it
recall,
March?
Yes, it started just before that meeting.
Okay. You started that, right?
I didn't start at a group named Reform. Leoni did.
Okay.
And they approached me and Mr. Cole and said, "Hey, you know, you guys are the only ones up here standing up for us."
We're not mudslinging because a recall isn't mudslinging.
No.
So who's being recalled?
So who's being recalled is the supervisor, Howard Leonardberry,
Okay.
the clerk, Michelle Mankey,
Okay.
and the treasurer, Lori Stack.
Okay.
And the specific reason cited is for their votes on the distribution plan, okay? And that paid the 18 applications that paid.
Why is the trustee named in that if he voted yes on that?
So he's not named in it because, quite frankly, he didn't do his homework, and also there was a conflict. He voted no originally on the.
So he has some indifferent on the voting.
Yeah, and there were, to be honest with you, it was a collective decision by that group. That group is made up of about 37.
Wow,
people.
that many people.
It's
Yes.
tough to get that many
Wow, John, can you imagine if we had that kind of
Now,
support?
the other thing is, here's what I always find is funny. It was the progressives that brought us the ballot initiative and the recall.
Oh, yeah. Well,
So I laugh every time that happens.
So we're still in March.
so he's left off. There's part of that group, I'd say a quarter of it wanted him on there, okay?
Okay.
And about 3/4 said, no, let's stick with the 3 main ones. They're the ones that had all the input on the plan. Trustees aren't in the office every day making this plan. Clerk made it. We all know that the treasurer and the supervisor had input on it, right? So we go with that. You have to submit articles of language to the court.
Right.
So,
well, to the court, or does it go? Now I know in Hillsdale it goes to the election board, which is made up of the probate judge,
it's exactly
the
the
county
same.
clerk, and the treasurer.
Well, the
County treasurer.
The makeup's not exactly the same,
Okay,
but very similar.
but you have
board.
3.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it happens in the court.
Yes, and usually it's in probate court.
Yeah. So they submitted 3 articles, 2 of them being very similar. One just saying their votes on the plan. That one was approved. But, you know, anytime you get citizens, they want to inform the public, right? And the problem with language, if you deal with lawyers, which I have, you want to keep it simple, right? Because if it's not clear,
Kiss principle.
right? Yeah, then they can have it thrown out. So the only difference in the one it said that allowed them to receive, and it cited the dollar amounts. Well, technically, another budget amendment had to be passed to do that, blah, 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 blah. So there's confusion. It's not factually clear. So that one got thrown out. And then there was one on the budget amendment, and the same thing. They didn't just name how they voted on the budget amendment. They described that the budget amendment authorized the payments.
Right.
Okay? In other words, just a bunch of the attorneys tried to get all 3 thrown out. Obviously, the one that was the basic motion itself and how they voted was approved. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
So now you go.
Because that's factual.
Yeah,
That's-
that's where all the meat is, anyways.
Yes, exactly. So that goes forward, and you have to get a percentage of the last gubernatorial race in that township, and that turned out to be, I believe, 984 per position.
Right.
Okay? So you're tasked to do that within 60 days.
Yeah.
And it's and just to inform the public here, it's a sliding scale on that. as well.
Yeah.
And so that's
Yeah, it's
confusing
really
in and of
strange.
itself.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah.
So when you say sliding scale, you're saying if you don't get it in the first 60, you could negate like the first 10 days and go 10 days forward and get the total amount.
That's correct.
Yeah. So this group didn't have to do that. They actually stopped about a week prior.
Oh, wow.
They had them.
That's great.
and
Well, it doesn't surprise me with that many people
30
that are
people.
involved. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not all those people went and collected.
No.
Sure,
a lot
but
of-
I mean that's a lot of people
But
just to
out
get
of
word
any
of mouth.
group, you're only going to get about 3% that are active.
Yeah.
In any group.
But
Still, that's pretty good.
the members that a lot of these people have been coming for various different reasons. Okay. And we actually disagree on some key topics. We kind of talked about one upstairs.
Yeah.
Okay. But
that's good.
collectively came together and said, this is wrong. These people need to go. We need to get honest, intelligent,
Transparent people.
Moral.
Yeah.
So to clear it up, it's not a legal issue.
No,
This is morality. This is
it's ethics and morals. Now, here's
a
the.
lot of people don't know how important that really is.
Well,
Most people couldn't define those two things.
if you guys go Google the Jackson Citizen Patriot article, because they were there when we made the motion for the attorney.
Right.
The attorney was given the right to speak. He says, "What's my job? It's to give a legal opinion. Is it moral? Is it ethical? Don't know. Not my job."
Ouch.
Now, this is before we take the vote to dismiss him. So at that point, when they say,
do they take an oath since he's an appointed position?
no, he's not appointed.
Oh, he's hired.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, they're
It's a township. Yeah, that's just hired.
So that quote in itself, I'm just like, wow. Well, I
Yeah.
Mr. White, that's your prerogative, but I personally want an attorney that cares about morals and ethics.
Yeah, I want friends that care about morals and ethics.
Doesn't have to be a friend, just somebody that's objective,
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's where we went. No, it's not a legal issue. Honestly, somebody should call a congressman and
The problem is your congressman's Tim Walberg. You're going to run into the same problems over there. So we're still in March.
we're still in March. So
A lot happened in March.
It did, and the recall process, a lot of people don't know how difficult it is, right?
No, it's very difficult.
Yes, so you gotta get the language done, and that takes time, to go to court and all that, and then they have the right to appeal it. So you had to give it another 10 days, and believe me, if they could have, they would have.
When is this vote going on?
The recall vote.
It's in November, isn't
It'll
it?
be the November election. That's correct. Yep.
Okay. Are they going to, do you know offhand? Because I already know that it's a one-part process, which means that if these people are either Republican or Democrat, either way, they're automatically put on the ballot.
Who you're talking? The people being recalled?
Yes.
Yes. They get a chance to fight for their seat, and the way it works is the opposing party has to endorse the candidate that'll run across him on the ticket. Okay?
Yeah.
Another person could run as an independent, but it's extremely difficult. To
Right,
run
right,
as an
exactly. Well,
independent.
here in Hillsdale, Corey, because it sounds to me that out where you are, it's a little bit more liberal. So they're Democrat, Republican, it's going to be whatever. Here in Hillsdale, it's always Republican.
Yeah,
Right.
You
So
can't
you,
get
so
a
you
Democrat
get, so
on
you
the
get a lot of rhinos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah, we got a zoo full of rhinos.
if you're on my local board and I was recalling you, you're automatically put on the Republican ticket. I can't run as a Republican now.
No, you got to run as a Democrat or an independent.
Which is ludicrous out here. This was changed more recently, just so you know. I don't know if you know. It used to be a two-part process, and one of our county commissioners helped push this into a one-part process in the state of Michigan. So it made it harder to recall people. I don't know if for good or bad. It's just now it's harder to get people out of office if you need to get them out of office for whatever reason.
It absolutely is, because at this point we've interviewed a lot of candidates, and a lot of people were interested, and then they kind of saw how hostile it started getting.
Yeah, it seems pretty hostile.
And they're like, you know what? I don't need this in my life.
Yeah, it's more than what they can bite
Right.
or chew.
But we have found actually more than 3 people that are interested with the same common goal. Number 1 goal, absolutely no payouts of medical marijuana to any elected official, right?
That's for payouts, period.
Number 2, they are going to slash the salaries more than 50%
That's
of
wonderful.
the elected officials, because, quite frankly, these elected officials are working part-time anyways. I mean, to me, I don't know. I work in the private sector, 5-10 hour shifts. Okay?
Well, John and I believe that the politician generally shouldn't be getting paid anyways.
Well, you're right. And I'm probably somewhere in the middle of that, to be honest with you. Okay, I'm not saying they shouldn't have any salary. Okay,
just a loose paraphrase from Benjamin Franklin is, he said, a man should leave his business and go serve a duty unto the people, creating laws, and then go back to his business and live under the laws he created. He said this and only this creates just law, and this is why we no longer have any just law.
Well, I like that quote, but to be frank, I mean, it's hard enough to get qualified people. If there's no compensation, it's difficult. Now, in this case, there's a reason, right, that some good people came out of the woodworks and want to run and want to slash their salaries, don't want to take the medical benefits.
Right, you're going down the right path.
Yeah, but when this all dies down and these people start doing the right things in office, and as we believe they will ultimately prevail in the recall election, people stop paying attention, right?
Yeah, and it goes back to the old. It
goes on the back burner, and then good people sometimes don't run. So really, as a party, we've got to do a more effective job of recruiting candidates with the same ideals.
Well, John and I believe a lot of it comes from the school education platform that has failed miserably.
If I could really quick.
And, the parents obviously grown up in a failed system. Now you got 3-4 generations deep not knowing anything about
government.
Civics.
Oh, absolutely.
If I could, Benjamin
Franklin, or a skewed version of it.
Right, exactly.
Benjamin Franklin does talk about that in his speech of June 2nd, 1787.
Man, he's got the answer to everything.
Little excerpt here. Well, think about it. In the Constitutional Convention, all the rest of them were 30, 40 years old. He was the only one that was 80 years old.
Yeah, he can cure cancer.
If you understand Benjamin Franklin, he was given up at the age of 8 because his father couldn't feed him anymore, so he worked. Everything Benjamin Franklin accomplished, he did it out of himself.
Okay.
He wasn't born into power and privilege like a lot of the others were, like Hamilton, like Madison, like a lot of them. He was a self-made man. Even Washington was born into the Lord class of England, or he never would have been an officer in the British Army, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is why I like a lot of what Benjamin Franklin has to say, because he's very wise. And one of the things he says is, and this is in the speech, and basically he was arguing against the salaries that they wanted to pay to the executive position. And just like you said, well, you're not going to get the brightest and the best. He says, besides these evils, sir, though we may set out in the beginning with moderate salaries, we shall find that such will not be of long continuance. Reasons will never be wanting for proposed augmentations, and there will always be a party for giving more to the rulers, that the rulers may be able to, in return, give more to them. So that's exactly what's been going on.
And that's a more than valid point, especially when you get to the federal level.
And then when you look at farther down, he said, Hamilton says that we'll never get the brightest and the best. And he said, we just fought a war in which General Washington, with men of the same ilk, volunteered their time. He said, I have a better belief in the people of this nation, that we will always have those of honor that will rise to the top, Corey, if those positions are positions of honor.
Keep it honest. If you weren't if tomorrow they're like, we're not going to pay you, you're telling me you're going to quit your position?
No, I wouldn't.
Exactly.
There you go. So I think that's the issue.
I would do it for nothing. But to be fair, okay, I have a good job. And I don't need the income.
Yeah, but you're not supposed to get on these positions for an income.
I 100% agree with you.
Corey, here's the thing. I've got a bad job. I don't make that much. I give a lot of my time away for free to people that need it.
No, and I totally get it. I do all kinds of charity work, and I don't expect any compensation.
Exactly, because because you're a good moral person.
Well, the thing is, the group I'm in, we operate under Matthew 6:1-4, and that's why you'll never hear of what we do. Because we do not blow horns unto ourselves.
Well, and I hear that. But just to be fair, because I don't know, there's going to be listeners from Leoni here.
Yeah.
We hope
at the local government level, the clerk, the treasurer, it's a little bit different than a congressman or a senator. Okay, they do have duties of collecting funds. So I'm not totally against. I don't think those should be non-paid positions. Okay, do I think our current structure is overcompensated? Absolutely.
I think so. Yeah,
that's exactly what Benjamin Franklin was talking about.
The slippery slope, and I get that, and that definitely happens because there's always a group that comes in and says,
"Well, we need to give them more."
John, Corey, can we get out of March? What's going on?
Gosh, you keep him in March.
April.
Okay, well, honestly, that was pretty much it, okay, because we got part of what we wanted. We got it shut down at least,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
And it's in a frozen account.
Well, you guys, even going into June here, I went to your guys' meeting and I filmed it live, and I seen you guys took those funds and hired a cop.
We did. We $80,000 a year will cover his salary, his pension, and he or she, and their medical benefits.
Now, I did, when I was talking to I believe it was your treasurer at the time, and I thought it was weird that you voted yes for a cop, because here you just took all the work that they were doing and put it on this cop, but he's collecting money too. So I'm thinking, well, that's sort of funny because
no, he's not collecting money too. This is his salary.
Yeah, well, that's the same. I mean, the money's being paid somewhere.
Yes,
whether it be the treasurer or whether it be this cop.
Government operates in general funds, so.
No. So I gotta stop you guys there.
Go ahead.
So this medical marijuana thing is different. Okay.
This is like the millage fund, John.
It literally can't go in the general fund.
Okay,
not
good.
this $5,000. Okay, and it can only be used to offset the costs associated with the enforcement and the administrative cost of implementing the medical marijuana ordinance.
Right there was your problem when they said administrative costs.
Yeah,
that's where
they justified their salaries.
We need to have more salary because we're administering.
You're exactly right. So where I am at is, number one, there is going to be needed law enforcement. I don't care what anybody says. This many facilities in our township now, and to be fair, it's not over 70 facilities, remember? Because I talked about the stacking
license. Yep.
I think we're near 30.
30. He said 27, I thought he said.
Well, I think he was off.
27 to 31 or something of that nature.
But, that's still...
Corey, you do realize these are corporations that are applying, right?
Yes.
Are all of them a corporation?
Most of them are. There's a few small guys.
Okay, so think about this for a second. If corporation works under the pleasure of government, which it does, right, why can't you guys offset the security? You guys got to hire a security guard instead of the cost going on you guys.
Yeah, well, most of them already are.
Or if you could do this with any service, whether it be for security or for fire protection or for any of this, you could pin it on them to contract themselves.
Yeah, well, I had all kinds of ideas that have kind of, they actually took it up because the officer, now remember, he's going to be in charge of enforcing the ordinance, but he's also going to be doing the applications themselves, okay? And we also got him a vehicle.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
You took the old vehicle and gave it to someone else in your guys' departments.
Right, yes. Well,
you got two new vehicles this last time.
Well, not exactly how you said it, but yeah, But that's actually a positive for the community, right? That's an asset that the community can see rather than money going into their elected officials' pockets.
Well, wait a minute. The law enforcement officer is an asset to them?
Yeah, I think if somebody has to look out for their well-being. There's going to be a criminal element that comes into the area.
Sure.
Well, wait. Back that up. Why would we have a criminal element being in? Can you prove that?
I can't prove it.
Okay.
Statistics do tend to suggest it in a lot of studies where...
Yeah, well, where are these statistics and studies?
Where are they? Primarily out in Colorado, where I've read about.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think we jump the gun a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and most of these places are 100% professional and they have security parameters. But the reality is, it's a cash business. Okay.
Sure.
Wait.
How is it a cash business?
It's a cash business.
No, so this is what I was wondering too, because you might know, Corey. I don't know. You've done a lot more research on this. Who are they? So they got 1,600 plants. You're telling me they're coming into their plant facility and just selling an ounce of weed to someone?
No.
Okay.
That's not how it works.
How does it work?
So you have to have the license that allows you to do what? A grow license does not allow you to sell it.
Let's just do all four together.
Let's say
you want to say you want to do a whole operation.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, how does this work?
So there's different. Each one is broke down by zoning. Okay, whether you're ag, commercial, industrial.
you can't do it all out of the same building
No.
because it's got to be in different places.
Exactly.
Oh, no
Yeah.
doubt.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
So so the dispensary is not ever going to be with the grow facility,
Which is good because it keeps that all from being bundled in one place in one spot. So thereby, if it's being grown
I don't know,
there,
how is
no
that
one
good?
can go there and purchase. It has to go
If
through the purity.
if I build my tractors at my facility and I sell them out of my facility, I mean, I don't see how that's good. I don't see how it's good I see. This is where I was going to go, Corey. Is I have a problem with the whole ordeal right from the jump. The $5,000 right from the rip.
Well, it didn't have to be $5,000.
Well, it doesn't have to be anything, does it?
No, it could be. Well, it
Yeah,
might have to be $1.
It doesn't have to be.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be because you guys are the highest law of the land in your community. And you can say, you know what? We want marijuana facility businesses to come here. We want jobs to be here. We're going to get out of the way, and you guys come on in and do what you please. And that's what you can do. But they work under the pressure of government, so you guys can put parameters, certain parameters, but you don't have to necessarily charge them anything.
You didn't have to, but there are costs associated with it. $5,000, maybe not. We're going to see.
That's
here.
definitely an excessive because you got $330,000 in a pool, and you guys don't even know what to spend the money on.
I know what I would like to spend it on.
The other thing
it's not
is-
going to pass.
Like a pool for the kids.
No,
But
you
the
can't use it for that. I wish.
But the other thing is when we start doing $5,000, it makes sure that a certain subgroup.
This is
only
picking.
those that kinda-
This is picking winners and losers.
Well, so
for sure.
I'm gonna stop you there because the $5,000, isn't anything compared to what the state's charging. Okay.
Right. No, we disagree with the state.
I don't care about the state.
And the requirements of what liquid cash assets that have to be in their bank account.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is totally designed for the rich to get richer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
That's-
but see, as and you understand that. My whole thing is just because the state's got it set up like that doesn't mean that I've got to pee in the pool too.
Two wrongs
right?
don't make a right.
Just because somebody's peeing in the pool doesn't mean I have to as well.
That's valid, and I think it's clear with the payout amounts going to officials that plan wasn't justified.
Right.
If I could real quick, I just, when you were talking about this, I pulled up the MRPC. Just interesting, which is the Michigan Rules for Professional Conduct. And it says, in the nature of law practice, however, conflicting responsibilities are encountered. Virtually all difficult ethical problems arise from conflict between a lawyer's responsibilities to clients, to the legal system, and to the lawyer's own interest in remaining an upright person while earning a satisfactory living. The rules of professional conduct prescribe terms for resolving such conflicts. Within the framework of these rules, many difficult issues of professional discretion can arise. Such issues must be resolved through the exercise of sensitive professional and moral judgment guided by the basic principles underlying the rules. So when your lawyer said, is it moral? I don't care. You better care because you took an oath to this and signed a contract that said you would use moral judgment.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's against their licensing.
Yeah.
There was intent with this board. You told me there was intent. In the very beginning when they were with this plan, that is the intent, to benefit. And that is what we're talking about. This is the recall. It's because
immoral.
This is a moral situation. This is the ethical conflict of interest issue that we're having, and I bet Leoni Township's not exclusive to this.
No.
Actually, it is.
Is it?
There's been no. I spent countless phone calls calling townships that had ordinances. I couldn't find one that made any type of payout to elected officials.
Really?
In Michigan.
In Michigan.
You didn't try Colorado.
No, because I'm not worried about.
But what I'm saying is,
But as far as we know,
what
it's
we're saying
exclusive to Michigan.
yeah.
What? Yes, for everybody I called, and I've called Bangor up north.
Well, Osseo, I was told passed this. So when they move forward and stuff, this is the kind of stuff that we
Reading passed it as well.
Morenci,
Village of Reading.
So
Reading Village.
you have to look at each ordinance, all right? So Leoni's is pretty open and pretty. I don't want to say loose because there are restrictions in it, but the stacking and the allowing of all four types of licenses.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of townships that did that. Okay.
Okay.
So I don't know Reading, but I can tell another rural town similar to Reading, Parma in Jackson County. They only did grow, and they only did a few of them.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and you're going to see a lot of that because the local municipality has the right to say, hey, we're only going to do 1, or we're only going to do 10, or we're only going to allow grow, or we're only going to allow dispensaries.
Well, see, that's the one usually that's the hard one. Most people don't want the dispensary.
Dispensaries is the one that's the high profile and all that, but in reality, the grow really
the grow's where it's at. That's where the money is. Let's be real. This is who cares about the dispensary? You can do your backdoor dispensary.
Well, one thing, here's one thing. I don't use marijuana. None of my kids use marijuana that I know of.
How do you use it?
Huh?
Like a toy?
No, I think I've seen way less problems with marijuana than I've seen with alcohol.
Without a doubt.
But the fact of the matter is, one of the things that I see with this is this idea that if we're going to grow it, in medical marijuana, one of the things that they were talking about is, the FDA, they have purity standards on Vicodin. They have purity standards on Zoloft. They have purity standards on all of those medicines that Pfizer and Libby and all of them.
Well, don't get me started on that,
okay?
Because the government's got their hand in that as well.
Right, but the fact of the matter is, we've got lots of Christians in this county that are taking Vicodin and Zoloft, and they want to make sure that the medicine they're taking is pure. But yet, a child that is having 5 seizures every hour, and when given cannabis oil, they have 1 seizure a week.
Yes, and Parkinson's disease.
That's right. Greatly increases their quality of life. But yet, these same people that practice the do unto others as you want others to do unto you don't want these people to have any purity in their medicine, and that's part of what was going on here. Was I know when we got into it with Hillsdale City, this grow operation, they had to actually send it by like an armored truck to Lansing to a lab for it to be made sure that it was pure, that it didn't have any pesticides, that didn't have all these different things.
More regulatory, John.
More regulatory. Now, I'm not a big regulatory guy, but even with the regulatory, you've got these same Christians going, well, we don't want it. Well, so you're telling me that some other people don't deserve the purity of their medicine?
It's a tough situation because I've heard from people on both sides. Now, in Leoni Township, the general public is actually in favor of medical marijuana itself. Okay?
Yeah.
There's 2 things they're not in favor of. One is what the actual reason for the recall was, that elected officials were being compensated through it. Okay. The other part is how rapidly it grew in Leoni. And
I was surprised to see that too.
Yeah.
So they weren't necessarily against it, but then they're like, wait a second, this huge.
Yeah, we don't want to be known as the pot capital of the world.
Well, a lot of it is not in my backyard, right? You don't.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, Corey.
I see that with
the
prisons.
market. The market would read them out anyways, like it matters.
And honestly, with the dispensaries, I can tell you, I would be shocked if all 15 make it. Okay?
Yeah, I mean,
there's not the market for it.
3, right?
But that's the thing. If we believe in principles, only work when we practice them, not when we preach them.
If you believe in the free market, then you
that's
believe
right.
in the free market.
It will work.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly. So that's why. I mean, I was surprised to see how big it grew too. But I'm thinking, well, hell, if you guys could withstand that many people, why?
See, the market should pick winners and losers, not government.
Right.
In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, though, I was elected to represent the people of Leoni Township. And, and a substantial amount said, Corey, we don't have a problem with this, but we want it to slow down. We want it to stop for now.
Okay.
Now, there's a few that are kind of like the individuals he was talking about in Hills that are just dead set against it. They're not the majority, okay? And then there's another minority that, let it keep going.
Well, Corey, I mean, do you represent, or do you, you said you represent the people of your community, right?
Yes.
Did you swear an oath to them, or do you swear an oath to the Constitution? Are you operating constitutionally, or are you operating at good intentions?
We took an oath to the Constitution.
Okay, so are you operating at a good...
If 100% want something, if it's against the Constitution.
If 100% of your population said, Corey, we want all the houses blue in town.
Well, that's, yeah.
Okay, so are you operating with good intentions, just like the rest of the board? Or are you operating constitutional? These are, no, you don't have to answer that today, but just take that home with you.
Something to think about.
Yeah,
because
I don't think that's a fair analogy there, to be honest. A little extreme compared to the other, but I think when a township didn't get to vote on the ordinance itself.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
And they see it happening, and they see it happening too fast. I think as an elected official,
I can see the red flags going up.
You owe it to at least hear them out and not necessarily dissolve the plan.
Right.
But put the temporary moratorium, which we did, and say, let's see how many that the state approves.
Right.
And
then,
like
you said, with recreational, these people could be losing all their money. This is unbelievable.
It's very possible. But what I did learn, though, is any more that go forward, we really need to have workshops, and we need to have the communities.
There's no reason not to. Yeah. I mean,
and that didn't happen initially, and that's not, honestly, I don't blame that on the 3 elected officials.
Right.
I blame that on all of us. We should.
How about your attorney? How about the MTA?
Well, the MTA.
I mean, they should be up on this like big time, wouldn't you think? I mean, they only get thousands of dollars from each community.
Well,
the problem is. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Corey.
The problem is the MTA's not up on it, but guess what? Laura's not up on it, right?
Yeah.
It keeps changing every minute.
Right.
So
that's why we should just let it go and get it out of that regulatory bull crap.
Yeah.
Let's be fair.
Regulatory law. Let's be fair. Administrative law and regulatory law is not talked about in the Constitution for a reason. That's because it's based in no antiquity of law that has proven itself over the test of time. It was invented in the 20th century by progressives, 100%. So I'm not a big believer of regulatory law or administrative law.
IRS would fit in that bill, Corey.
Bureaucracies. Now, one of the
FDA.
things that we were talking about is John said, are you doing things in the best of intentions? Madison in Essay 51 talks about the best of intentions, and he talks about the fifth article of the Constitution, and that it's there. And if you know, progressives and liberals are the ones that hate the fifth article of the Constitution because they think that it makes government too unresponsive to the people. They can't change government fast enough when people want something. And in that, there was a lawsuit called Mac Prince v. USA, in which Justice Scalia gave the majority opinion. And one of the things he said is, and this is just a quote from him, it says, "But the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. It divides power among sovereigns and among branches of government precisely so that we may resist the temptation to concentrate power in one location as an expedient solution to the crisis of the day." So what he's talking about is our founders even understood doing things in the best of intentions, and that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And so we have to be very careful that we're not representing the people of our township, but that we're representing the Constitution, because that's what we took an oath to.
Right. But it's still important to hear what your constituents think and what they want.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, we don't disagree.
Absolutely.
We don't disagree.
And the reason for that is because in Federalist 45, Madison talks about the powers of government. The federal government has very defined and enumerated powers, very small. There's only 17 powers the federal government has, but the state has numerous and undefined power to do that. Local government has that. As long as, under Article 6, it's pursuant thereof the Constitution, the whole Constitution. Mm-hmm. So even when they come down and go, well, just like New Jersey did, well, you can't have a weapon that has any more than 10 rounds, or that's illegal. Okay. By Article 6, even though the state has the power to make these laws, any law they create still has to be under Article 6, pursuant thereof, the entire Constitution.
And if it's not, John, what happens?
Then it's null and void at its inception.
That's right.
Article 6 says anything contrary, notwithstanding. That's what John Marshall in 1803 quoted in Marbury versus Madison when he said, anything that's repugnant to the Constitution is null and void at its inception.
Corey, I'm glad you came on the show, because looking at this case is actually kind of juicy, as far as newsworthy and stuff.
Sure.
We don't get this kind of action all the time, and
I'm glad you said all the time, because we do get some of this action.
Not like, and this is pretty significant, right? This is a lot.
This is pretty salacious.
This is a lot of money, Corey.
It is.
This is extraordinary. A lot of people can get rich working in Leoni Township as far as government goes.
Right, and and the biggest thing is, for people that just started paying attention to it, is they're only seeing the 9,000, the 4,500, and the 6,300, and then the over 40K that went to the attorney. and they're thinking, well, that's a lot. You know, some people are like, that's a lot, but then you did extra work. What they're not realizing is that plan, had it stayed in motion, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars now.
And it's not to say that these people are like evildoer people. Like, they're actually nice people in person.
Nobody that's 100% good or 100% evil.
No, I know, but I mean, like, in person, they're nice people.
Sure.
They really are.
I don't have a personal problem with them. Okay,
right.
I have a moral standpoint that they were wrong in what they did, and that they won't correct it.
And I agree with you, because I always talk about just because it's legal doesn't make it right.
Exactly.
Well, we used to get that, and a lot of people get mad at me for this, but in Hillsdale City, we used to get that all the time. Anytime a question was brought up, they'd always go, well, it's legal. I said, yeah, I can tongue kiss my sister, too. That's legal, but should I? It's immoral.
It's legal is the lowest barrier that you have to meet, right?
That's right.
So just because something's legal doesn't make it right.
Doesn't make it moral.
And Corey, I've had quite a few politicians on the show now. The one question that I always ask them is, whose job is it to call the other person out if they're acting illegal, immoral, or unethical? And I pretty much get the same answer as, well, they don't say this, but they don't want to rock the boat.
Yeah.
And
so we talked about this earlier in the podcast. I had to do some soul searching.
You're the first person that I met.
Yeah, prayer led to a lot of it. Okay, but also talking with my girlfriend, and she actually was opposed to it. She said, "You don't need this in your life."
Yeah, it's turmoil
because it takes attention away from me.
Well, she's also a very, very strong Christian. She's actually brought me back into religion, and
sometimes you get religious people that feel like let the government do their thing.
Well, she's more New Testament. I'm a little more Old Testament.
Yeah, they put a lot of faith in God.
I like her. I'm not liking you as much anymore.
Well, I just felt, honestly, had I not done anything, because remember, checks were going to come to me. Too, right? Okay. I honestly would have had. I wouldn't have been able to live with myself.
Yeah, you could have got a new AR.
Yeah.
Well, at this point,
gone down to
or
the shooting
given it
range.
to me.
Gone down to that shooting range.
At this point, I would have probably like $2,000. Yeah.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
we
nice
could have
AR.
a couple of them.
Yeah. So I would have just, even if I wasn't receiving money, knowing that was happening and being a part of it or being complacent to it. Because if you're complacent to it, you're still a part of it.
Well, that's it. That thing that we said earlier. What does it take for evil to prevail? It's for good men to do nothing. I'm a big black and white person. There's no gray. Gray's created by humanists, self-justify where they're standing. There's only black and white. And the thing is, if you're not part of the solution, you are part of the problem, because you are allowing evil to continue, because you, as a good man, you will not stand.
What do you think about the Second Amendment and the attacks that are always on it?
The attacks?
Yeah, well, I mean, in national level.
You call them attacks, they're not going to win. I mean, the Second Amendment will always prevail. It's there for a reason, right?
Really?
Okay, I think so.
Then how come felons can't have guns?
Well, that's true. There's little bits and pieces, but the core of it is, the right for a militia to bear arms, and it's not what's right for everyone to bear arms. But just hear me out. The militias were designed theoretically because our government
tyranny
could be against the people. So honestly, when liberals go after AR-15s and all that, no, the people should be allowed to have those.
I always tell John that we should have drones with missiles on them, because that's what we're going up against. You can't fight drones.
Washington said you should have the same equipment as the.
That's what I'm saying. You can't fight drones with shotguns,
right? And I try to listen to both sides. Okay, obviously you guys know I'm more conservative than liberal, but and I don't know what the answer is to stop all the mass shootings, other than...
You mean like the school shootings?
School shootings, movie theater shootings. It's always in gun-free zones, right, guys? We can agree with that. Well, it's where people are vulnerable.
It's the privilege of the upper.
Corey, if I could, let me do just a quick little class on the Second Amendment here.
You're so boring, John.
And that is, it says, this is exactly what it says. It says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state.
Yes.
Okay? That's the condition.
The right shall not be infringed to bear arms.
So first, they said a militia A well-regulated and armed militia is necessary for a free state. That's not talking about the people being armed. That's talking about a militia. Now, it says, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed because the state must have an armed militia to keep it free, to keep the state free. But what keeps the people free? The people having the right to keep and bear arms.
Yeah.
That's how that's read. It's been misread to us for a long time that, well, the militia and the people are the militia. No. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state is the statement, the reason why the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's pretty clear English. The last 4 words, shall not be infringed. It doesn't say unless you have a felony. It doesn't say unless you have mental illness. It doesn't say unless you live in New Jersey. It doesn't say any of that stuff.
Yeah, and that, I know you guys are hardcore constitutionalists, and and I get that, but
You're not?
I am to an extent, but I'm going to tell you, I don't want a psychopath getting a gun.
Well, here's the thing.
Bona fide.
Well, we can amend that, right?
Wait a minute. We believe in the free market economy, right?
Yeah.
The free market economy solves itself, right? Now, I'm going to tell you, my brother is a huge Second Amendment guy, too. Mm-hmm. And during the RNC that was going to happen down in Cleveland, my brother said, geez, I hope Governor Kasich suspends the open carry law down there. And I said, who are you and what have you done with my brother? And he goes, no, he said, because the Black Panthers are going to open carry down there, and all it's going to take is one idiot to fire a gun. And you know what? Then we're going to lose all of our gun rights. And I said, again, who are you and what have you done with my brother? I said, principles only work when they're practiced, not when they're preached. And we both believe that an armed society is a respectful society. And I said, I hope he doesn't, because it's going to prove the point. Do you know how many arrests happened during the RNC down in Cleveland?
No.
3. Do you know how many businesses had their windows shattered? None. Do you know how many cars were tipped over and turned on fire, caught on fire? None. Do you know how many gunfire exchanges there were from the Black Panthers to the Constitutionalists or to the Oath Keepers or anybody? 0.
Right.
0. You know why? Because the principle is true. So if a free market economy writes itself, the principles that our founders put down work too. A moron. What is the highest natural law? Self-preservation, right? If you take a man and grab his head and hold it in a horse trough, he's going to fight to get his head out of there, isn't he? A brand new baby that's born fights for life, fights to stay alive. So the highest natural law is the law of self-preservation. So if we put guns in the hands of the Black Panthers and the ultra-right, guess what happens? You get a peaceful society that respects one another, because any fool that would shoot is going to get shot by many other people. And guess what?
Natural
then
selection.
The people don't have to put him in prison and hold him for a long time.
Well,
the other thing that happens is if someone gets a felony and they should not have a gun, then they should never be let out of prison. We have in zoos, we have certain animals that are behind glass and bars because they're dangerous. Mm-hmm. Other ones that if you want to, you could probably jump the fence pretty easy and get in with, right? Sure. So those are the ones that aren't dangerous.
Yeah.
So we've got this idea. You know how many people we've got locked up in our prison system because of drugs? Not because they're dangerous, not because they shouldn't. You know how many people we've got locked up in our jail here in Hillsdale County because they missed their child support payment, which made them a felony, which now says that they cannot defend their family with a gun? This is wrong. This is completely against what our founding fathers said.
As a politician, you should be doing your due diligence and protecting those people's civil liberties.
So guys,
it's kind of a setup.
As a township official, that you're gone way above my head.
No, actually we didn't. Local government is the key to a Republican-style government. Republican.
Corey,
well, I'm pro Second Amendment for sure.
How do people get a hold of you, Corey?
You can, there's several ways. I have a Facebook page. I'm actually running for county commissioner in Jackson County, and that primary is in August. So I have a Facebook page.
Wait, you're running for county commissioner?
I am.
Oh wow, that's that the corruption is just gets bigger for you when you get up there.
Right. Well, so what had happened was the county commissioner decided he was going to run for state rep. He's a Republican, and he asked me, would you consider running?
Yeah. You're running on the Republican ticket yourself, right?
I am, yes. I have a primary opponent, and then there's 2 Democrats running in their primary.
Okay, so
you're running in District 3?
I'm running in District 3 of Jackson County.
Okay, so you got 4 people running in your position.
That's correct.
Okay, and how do you feel your chances are?
I feel they're pretty good. I'm certainly the most qualified from a professional and educational standpoint. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration.
I don't give a shit about any of that.
You don't?
The only thing I think about is like your constitutional standpoints.
Well, I can tell you can probably see that I'm not afraid to stand up to something when I see that it's wrong.
Yeah, this is actually what your constituents should be thinking about when they're electing you for county commissioner, right?
Yeah.
Like look what you're standing against and the courage that you have to stand up for them.
So my other thing, and this is another key point of disagreement that I've had with much of the board, is I'm a strong supporter of property owner rights.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so are we.
And by that, I think it's kind of like what you guys were talking. You come in with good intentions on these blight ordinances.
Yeah.
And what you end up with is selective enforcement.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And it's not fair. So
well, it's a way to get even with your political enemies.
Yeah. So I do not believe that government is the solution. Okay?
No, it's not. It's
the problem.
It's not.
It's not what we're here for. And you guys, I think we've talked about this. You disagree with me on this point to an extent, but I believe it's there to provide the minimum basic services.
Yeah, well, that's arbitrary, right?
You don't think it should be any services, but
well, I mean, listen, I know that we can't just like light switch it, we have a necessary evil until we can fix it. The thing is, we got to come up with solutions, but people are so brain dead they don't even want to. It's too much work to think about solutions.
The problem is we have not had anybody that's lived liberty and freedom since 1913.
Turn of the century,
since 1913.
Yeah.
So anybody that hasn't been born before 1913 has never lived under true liberty. So we talk to conservatives all the time. John and I, we talk to people that are Republicans and conservatives all the time. Now, a lot of them, of course, are rhinos, but most of them always fall back to that, well, as long as most of the people in my township want it, well, as long as, and that's a good intention. And then I always get that, well, that's democracy. No. The vote isn't democracy. The vote is testing the consent of the governed.
Example, Pulaski Township, which is in your county. Pulaski Township.
That's the power plant, right? Didn't they?
I have no idea about the power plant.
Pulaski?
Oh, boy,
no, they just started stealing the farmer's land today.
Yeah, today you guys had Pulaski, not you guys, but in Jackson County, they started confiscating property off a guy's property for a blight ordinance off a farm. And, I had the township supervisor on the phone today asking him about this type of scenario, like asking about morality. He's a very pleasant man to talk to.
Sure.
I was asking
Bob Jones.
Bob Jones. I was asking him about the morality of this. He listens to the show, ironically, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yes.
It came down to the democracy thing, and I asked him if 51% of the people wanted the house blue, would you go with it?
Right.
Well, the other thing is, and I see Bob's side of that on this particular issue.
You get a lot of people that come into meetings. Okay, it's major. Almost every meeting, there's somebody that comes in complaining.
There's a lot of complaints.
Government, do something for me. Good brother, help me.
I saw it at your meeting.
Yeah.
They were standing up and they were asking for government to do whatever they could for whatever reason.
And the problem is, what I think my front yard should look like is different from what you might, right?
Right.
So, they went after, and unfortunately the man passed away, but the township took a lawsuit on him simply because he had old farm equipment, old cars on like 30 acres of land back in a field. Okay?
Right.
And they claimed it violated the junk ordinance.
Right.
Okay. He wasn't doing anything to harm anybody. And in his case, you couldn't even see it from the road, right?
Right. So who made the complaints?
Well, that's a good question.
See, we get this a lot.
We get this
the
from
sixth
Robert
article of the Constitution says you have the right to face your accuser, but the township always goes, well, we're not going to give any names because then people won't complain.
Well,
so
Mr.
we're
Jones,
the accuser.
Mr. Jones today admitted that there was not one single
signed complaint.
I
got a problem with that.
And here they're confiscating X amount of dollars off someone's property.
Because the other thing is a complaint is only a real complaint if it's signed. It can't be a 911 call, and here's why. Because you have to affix your name to that under the threat of perjury, because you can't bring false witness against someone because that's obstruction of justice or perjury.
Again, John, going back to morality.
That's it. So I get this all the time where they go, well, we had a 911 complaint. Well, I don't care. Where's your signed complaint?
So there's just one other point I want to put out there that I feel this.
Oh, Corey, just so people know too, you're Corey with the C.
Corey.
Yeah, Kennedy. So like on Facebook, if they don't Facebook, how can they get a hold of you, Corey?
They can get a hold of me at ckennedy@leonitownship.com for email.
Okay.